this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. And don't forget to check out my website, paradxastrology.com. I am a professional astrologer and I can help you with anything. Okay, let's get into this video. Well, there's a full moon coming up on February 5th, and let's talk about it. Let's see what's going to happen. So the full moon is going to be at 22 degrees in Cancer, and that's in the nakshatra Ashlesha. And in Ashlesha, yes, the moon is well placed in Cancer, and a lot of people are going to tell you that, oh, it's a beautiful moon, it's in Cancer, but we have to look deeper. When we look at this nakshatra, there are some concerns. Now, Ashlesha is a very dark nakshatra when it comes to the events happening in Kali Yuga. The reason that is because this nakshatra can either be very awakened or it could be very deceitful. And a lot of other words that start with D, like diabolical, demon, things like that. That's why it's feared. This is something that you shouldn't fear if you have it in your chart. It's all how you use the energy that will show you. Like my dad has Jupiter in Ashlesha, and my dad is a very awakened, spiritually awakened being. I have clients who have this too. It's all how you use it to your advantage, because Ashlesha is actually Kundalini energy. So that's why it's represented by the coiled snake. Now, the coiled snake is your Kundalini energy, which is coiled up, and your Muladhara chakra, which is your root chakra. That's why you have the picture of the snake. I'll show you the nakshatra picture right here where you see the snake. That's where that comes from. So let's look a little bit deeper. So it's in Cancer, but not many planets do well in this nakshatra. So it could have to do with, like I said, all the D words: darkness, devouring, depression, destruction, dagger, doom, but it can also be doctor. It's interesting enough that we see the snake coiled up in the medical symbol of our modern times. It does depict that, but it can depict somebody, especially what we've been going through right now with, the whole medical issues that we've been having in the past couple of years and everything like that. There's not a lot of trust that I have with this going correctly. Because it can connect, it's very good at being intuitive, that having that intuition, but sometimes, especially in our days, because it's ruled by Mercury in our modern times in Kali Yuga isn't really being used for the highest purposes. Mercury is a trickster. So in Ashlesha, the energy can come up where somebody is very good at talking and they're very good at sensing others, and they use that to exploit them. So this is the danger in that. But like I said, it can be somebody that is completely awakened or comes to an awakening period. Maybe you've been doing some meditative practices and then this becomes an accumulation of that because it is a full moon, an accumulation. Or it could be you sensing something that needed to be sensed. Now, Cancer has to do with the housing market, has to do with the stomach, bodies of water, the mother, the womb, just to name a few things. It could also be with cooking as well. Since it is the coiled snake, it's represented by our DNA. Our DNA is like a coiled snake, which has all the information of our past lives within it. The thing is, we have Mercury is a ruler of Ashlesha, so we have to look where Mercury is. If we put the moon in the first house and we look at the chart in that way, like a moon chart, we can see that Mercury will be in the 6th house, in Sagittarius, and which is also the lord of the 12th house and the 3rd. Now, having the Mercury in the 6th house, but having the lord of the 12th and the 3rd, there could be some issues, and having it in the 6th, that could mean some public health issues when we're looking at mundane astrology. That could be public health issues, epidemics, health service, national health services, army, navy, civil servants of the country as well, and it can workers, employees in general, and the trade. So we could have either some 3rd house communication about that. We could have some more information that comes to light that's communicated about certain health issues, probably the ones that we were dealing with since 2020. We could have information about that. It could show us that some things that we thought were true were perhaps not true. There could be some deception within that, within the medical community. Some things that maybe that were communicated to us, we find out that weren't obviously the truth, because having also Mercury in Sagittarius represents the truth. So there could be some communications about a truth coming out where it was deceptive. We also have Rahu in the 10th house of Aries, and we have Ketu in the 4th house of Libra. Rahu in the 10th house. The 10th house is our public leaders. It has to do with the monarchy, the president, the government, anything in authority, royalty, famous people, national trade, credit, power, and employment rates. So we could definitely see some other things pop up with that. And Rahu in the 10th, especially during our times when people are on their highest integrity, Rahu can symbolize somebody that wants to get something done very fast. It can symbolize an obsession. It can symbolize a deceit. So there could be a deceit or something communicated that may, or it could be something that we found out from the past, communicated, brought on about these issues that were kind of deceitful. Jupiter will be in the 7th in Pisces, which is well placed. We have Mars in the 11th, and Mars in the 11th, that has to do with the parliamentary, especially House of Commons and the town and country councils. And so there's going to be a lot of action revolved around that at this time. A lot to do with what I just mentioned in parliamentary. So new beginnings, that could be Mars new beginnings. There could be some aggression. There could be some action taken towards these things. We also have Saturn in the 8th, which is going to be aspecting Rahu in the 10th. I'm going to have a whole video about what's going to happen because right now Saturn is going to be aspecting Aries until October 2023. And this is a very big deal. Saturn and Rahu they're similar, but they're different. And I'm going to have a whole video about that, but how it's aspecting Rahu in the 10th. Saturn is well placed in the 8th. In Aquarius. It's well placed in the 8th in Aquarius because it is the ruler of the 8th house and it is the ruler of Aquarius. But there's something, it's showing us something has to transform. Karma is coming to those who are in government. And maybe if they weren't working with the highest integrity, there could be some karma that's come to that. There could be some rush because Rahu wants everything done right away. And Saturn is patient. So there is going to be a push and pull about having a new beginning and having it starting now versus the humanity that wants to wait and progress normally. So there's going to be some things that are going to be accelerated in those aspects. So when it comes to the professions that we could see in Ashlesha that would come to an accumulation, these have professions which are, so anything dealing with poisons or anything, it could be something that was medical that has poisons in it or that contained something that wasn't good for human consumption. The petroleum industry as well. There could be some things coming out about that. There could be chemical engineers, cigarette industry, illegal drug trade. Rahu being there and Saturn aspecting Rahu could have a lot to do with drugs as well. The drugs that are being consumed by humanity that are poisonous. Anything that's self-serving that has to do with like politicians, self-serving politicians, behind the scene manipulators, psychologists, con artists, thieves. We're going to hear a lot about that. Swindlers. Ashlesha has to do with scammers. It has to do with anything that's deceptive. It will also have to do with doctors, surgeons, anything to do with cats and snakes, Secret Service agents, spies, false gurus, cult leaders, and baseball players as well. CIA, FBI agents, hospitals, law firms, factories dealing with poisons, chemicals, drugstores, illegal prostitution, drug peddling, kind of more seedy things that are connected with that. That kind of reminds me of, FBI raiding homes or the government or politicians, things like that. That kind of energy is what's happening. Also, having Saturn in the 8th, it could bring up deaths. It could bring up a mortality rate. It could bring up maybe a mortality rate that came from the health industry or something like that that's brought up. It's also going to be in the second pada, really has to do with the use of all the negative traits. So trickery, deceit, that's going to be high up on there. So be careful that you are aware of this and don't get yourself tricked because the tricksters will be out at this time. This is only for 2 weeks though. So the ability to let go of possessions is another part of this nakshatra. So letting go of possessions could have something to do with it. It's also considered bad for finance. So just to warn you that there could be a couple things maybe with the markets and that aren't very favorable. So on the other side, we have the sun at 22 degrees because it's directly opposing it. So what that has to do in Shravana is about learning and listening. So this pada has to do with music. It also has to do with limping because I'll show you the picture of it. There's 3 footprints, which are the footprints of Vishnu. So that's why it's also represented by the trident or the number 3, which is communication, which is hearing and listening. This is also a good nakshatra that has to do with completion as well. So now we have the full moon and this nakshatra that has to do with completion. So it's definitely showing us that something that maybe there was information coming out throughout this time, but this will be the completion of the last information that maybe we needed to hear. But it's also a good time if you were completing something. A lot of people will complete something during this time. The problem with this nakshatra is these people can be, my son's in there, so I'm one of these people, but you can be deceived by what you hear more easily than others. So that's why there's so much Mercury going on in this one, that there is going to be some kind of announcement. There is going to be a lot said, and there's a lot of deception around this. So just be very, very careful about that, because a lot of people are going to fall victim to this deception. The highest level is about acquiring universal knowledge, so like listening or meditation, listening to the higher knowledge, and then using that higher knowledge in the material realm. So that's why it's Capricorn, being able to listen for the answers and then have it materialize. If you are meditating and things like that, or say if you're involved in any business that requires you listening, something will come to completion. That could have to do with teachers, preachers, educators in all fields. That's associated with universities, linguists, translators, interpreters, like anything that you're hearing, storytellers. Maybe you're writing a story, and comedians and stuff like that. Maybe you guys were writing something and it's completion. Maybe it's showtime. In music business, recording industry, any counselors, psychologists, radio operators, talk show hosts, any TV media. It's really big with the media. That's why I say be careful. There's going to be a lot to do with the media, and Mercury is a trickster. It also has to do with like a lot of public gatherings. So there'll probably be a lot of public gatherings that will come together at this time. And also having Saturn, Rahu in Aries, let's have a new beginning. Let's change everything. And then Saturn wants to have patience and keep it going, have patience for the long haul. So we're going to have a lot of rebellion against the way things were, that kind of thing, and gatherings that have to do with that as well. Probably colleges, auditoriums, things like that. So with Ashlesha ruled by Mercury in the 12th house, and Shavana, hearing a message that was hidden that finally comes to full view and you have to deal with it. That could have to do with health, because Mercury is in the 6th house, the medical industry, also the snake reference, and daily routines, animals, life-saving services, public health, alternative healing. There also could be something to do with charitable associations that will come out that maybe they were deceitful, some charities or organizations like that, or clubs or societies, just to put that out there too. So those are just the things that have to do with the world. Your chart is different. Everybody's chart is different. What matters is the dasha that you're running is the most important, because sometimes the transits won't even affect you if you're in a different dasha. So never be afraid of what I'm saying. This is just a reading for the world. You are completely different, and I do readings. So if you like a reading, I can do it specifically for you, but never use this to be in fear or anything like that. I'm just letting you know what I see. And I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.